Good morning, everybody. I'm John Jerkowitz, and welcome to the Career Corner. Welcome. I'm really excited today because for the first time in a long time, matter of fact, in the 2 years I've been doing Hangouts on air, I really get an opportunity to listen to and to question a writer, an editor, and a coach. And with me today, I've got Ms. Deb Coman. Deb, welcome.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started out working in community mental health a lot of years ago as a mental health counselor with adults with mental illness, and then became a manager in that organization to the point where I was supervising all the group homes and the apartment programs in our case management program. And that was my first introduction to really communicating for business and coaching the staff that I supervised as well as the clients and doing some training. So that was really my first foray into the writing and editing world.
Boy, that's a really, I know that I've spent about 15 to 20 years earlier in my career doing business writing, and it's a whole lot different than sitting down and writing the great American novel.
It is, very much so, yes.
So what made you decide to want to become a writing coach?
Well, I did that for a long time in the mental health field, and then we started a family and we moved 2.5 hours away. I left that job and stayed home to raise my boys. And when the youngest one was headed off to kindergarten, his preschool asked if I wanted to, was interested in teaching there. And I did do that. And at this point right now, actually, I'm the director of that inclusive program. And it's only part-time. So along the way, I realized I missed the writing piece and the editing piece, and just asked someone that I knew who had her own PR business if she ever needed any help with her writing and editing. And she said yes. It's always good to be an asker. That's really how I've gotten all my work, is just ask people. And more often than not, they actually are looking for something. So I started doing that with her until she decided to go back to corporate. And I realized I wanted it to continue. So that's when I just branched off on my own and started doing a lot more asking to people I knew and a lot of people that I didn't know, and just offered what I could offer. And that's how it started. And one thing led to another, and people referred me, and the business just started taking off.
Okay, so let me give you this scenario. I come to you and I say, hey, Deb, I really need some help. I'm getting ready to write the great American novel, or I'm getting ready to write an ebook, or what have you. Could you walk me through some of the steps you use when you work with your clients?
Yes, I certainly can. And everybody comes from their own perspective. Some people, although they may like to write, they don't always think of themselves as a writer, or they don't think that they're a very good writer. And then people who need to write for their business sometimes don't always love that part of the business. So it's important to kind of get in touch with what the benefits are to practicing good writing. And I help people to define, if they haven't already, to define the purpose of their writing. So if you want to write a novel, as you know, John, pretty much anyone can write a novel and publish, self-publish, and that's great if that's all that you want to do. But if you want to sell those books and you want them to be marketable, you really need to look at it a little bit differently. And I help people try to get in touch with that piece and define that purpose for themselves, and then start the writing process with that very end purpose in mind.
And if there is one, is there a common theme, a most difficult task when people come to you? Is there something there that they just have a difficult time dealing with that you help them with if they weren't working with you?
Yeah, there's a variety, but some, for instance, the people who feel they're not great writers, or they're not good spellers, or they didn't have a great experience with English in school, they start off with that somewhat negative mindset. So it's really important to change that, which we all have the power to do, and remind ourselves that we're all writers, and we all can be better writers with a little help and practice. So I help people to try to take a look at that and support them. What I find more than anything is even the really established, long-time published authors will send me a piece to edit. I'll do the work, send it back, and they say, well, how was it? What did you think? And I always am surprised, even all this time later, that that's a real important piece to people, is just to get that feedback, to have a reader, other than someone in their family, give them a fresh perspective. So I really try to make sure that I send that along and add that support for their efforts, as well as the technical how-tos.
So do you use your intuition a lot when you're looking at a piece? And could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I do. I do feel that I'm intuitive in terms of how I work with people. I usually can help get under what the real reason is for their writing, and make a connection with them first and foremost to be able to do that if they're interested in that. And I do use my intuition in terms of trying to get a sense for how the piece might be received. And sometimes you just can't really put a finger on it, but you just feel that something's missing or something needs to be said a different way. And I do chalk that up to my intuition.
Well, and I certainly don't put myself in the category as any of the great writers of the world, but I do write, and I have most of my life. And I know that we're very sensitive souls when it comes to what we've written. It's almost like our children. How do you handle with a client? And I hear what you're saying, the intuition. This just isn't resonating, and I don't think it's going to resonate with the public. How do you handle that and at the same time help your client keep their confidence intact?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and it has happened where people often will ask just for proofreading, just edit for grammar. And if I feel that a piece needs a lot more than that, I feel the need to go back and ask the question. Certainly I can proof it, but do you want to know what I think about the flow? Do you want to know what I think about the order of things? Do you want to know what I think about the length or the audience? And most people will say yes, they do. Some say no, and that's fine. If they really just want straight proofing, that's okay too. But then there are some with a book almost ready to go that really isn't ready to go, but other people have told them that it was. And that's a real tough spot. And I don't struggle with that for very long, because I just feel it's an obligation to tell the person my professional opinion. And I do. And most receive it well and say, you know, they appreciate that, because their friends and family will say, it's great, it's awesome, go ahead and publish. And again, it brings me back to that question of, well, do you want to sell it? I mean, you can publish it as is, but if you want to sell it, then you might need to look at a rewrite or reorganization or what the overall message is. And that's a real important piece of what I feel I need to do with people.
Here's what I heard you saying, and I think it's a real good point for our audience out there today. You're a professional, and you're a professional editor. And one of the things I was thinking is your mom and dad are supposed to love you. Your wife and kids are supposed to think you're the greatest author in the world. You kind of bring the a strong dose of reality. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, I think it is. And I hope that using my intuition and my years of counseling and coaching, that I do it in a gentle way. That's usually what I hear back from people. And what I'll say is I really try to find the parts that are usable, that are good, or what their purpose was, and really be sure to point that out to them and say, you know, this is great. However, if you want it to be even better, here are some things that we can do, and I can help you do that. So rather than just say, you know, this isn't going to work, good luck with that, there's always a way to help people to make it better. So it's really important, I think, to support what they've done, to retain their voice in their writing. It's really not my job to take it and change it up and make it mine. that doesn't really make me a very good editor. That's usually not what people want. They want to retain their voice. So that's where I come in terms of getting to know them and see their other writings and see a little bit about their business to get a sense of how they typically convey their messages. Because that's really a part of good writing, is writing the way you speak, writing the way that's true to you, and that's as natural as can be.
How important is it for you to understand a client's voice?
I think it's critical. I've worked with people, again, some who have been published multiple times, and they didn't really have a relationship with their editor. In fact, there was one who didn't know what the gender of their editor was, which I just found surprising. But in an online world, or if you're working with larger companies, things just kind of can get farmed out, and you may only speak through tracked changes on your documents. So that's just not the way that I choose to work. That's not why I got into this. I really enjoyed the connection with people. So I spend time in the beginning getting to know them. Not a whole lot of time. It's really on my time often, looking at their website, looking at other articles they published, getting to know them. Sometimes through online. It doesn't always have to be a conversation if they don't want to do that or we don't have the time to do that. But it's very important. I think it's critical to retain their voice. If it's going to be their byline, it really needs to be their voice.
You brought up doing it on their time. Writing, editing, and coaching isn't the only thing you do, is it?
No. In terms of, I'm still a director part-time at an inclusive preschool. It is part-time, so it does afford me the time to do this and to grow my business. And I have a family, and like all of us, there's always a long list of things to do and places to be and things to get done. But it's important for me, the writing piece and the editing piece and coaching really brings me a lot of joy. It's really, really fun. I'm always excited when I meet someone new or when I'm working on a project. It really becomes something that I want to be a part of. And beyond the writing and the editing, I want to help support people. I frequently will promote just about everything that I work on, with or without any affiliate. I mean, this is just because I feel like I helped, and I want it to succeed beyond just having the edit done. And that's really the best part of what I do.
I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn on you here and just move away from the writing and editing, because I think you brought something up that I hear from a lot of my guests. 88% of the new entrepreneurs in the world today are female. And they're not only just running their business as you are, but I listened to how you spoke that you have another part-time job and you have family obligations, and obviously you got to carve some time out to have fun with your family. So if I'm an entrepreneur, especially a female entrepreneur going into the business world today, give me Deb's 50 seconds of wisdom.
Okay. It has to be something you love, and most likely it's going to be, or you wouldn't be trying to fit that in. And the best advice that I got was you really need to focus your time and your effort on things that grow your business, that actually bring you income. And it's very easy to get caught up as a startup, getting your website, thinking you need to blog, thinking you need to get an ad, you need to do a long laundry list of things. And that is all good, and it is true, you do need to get those things done. But people can spend months and months or even years working on that and not really creating a business. And the best advice I got was to think about what you're doing and what it is that's going to help bring you in clients and have an income stream, so you can then go back, work on your website and do those other things. So I really practice to try to get things done, to not look for perfection, but to get the website up and running as quick as you can, to get something started that makes sense to grow your business, and then know that all those other things will come in time. If you want to sustain, you really need to be able to make it a business as soon as you can.
Good advice. Let me ask you a question, and if you've been a guest on the Career Corner, you know that I usually get together with you a week before, and we talk for a while so I can get a little background. But here's something I didn't ask you when we got together that you just, as I'm listening to you talk, and I thought, do you edit websites for content?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I'm really self-taught in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my own website and the content for that. And then I have helped other people do the same. So I'm not really a web designer per se, but I have helped people with a real rudimentary website make a lot of changes to get it to where it is today in a lot better shape. And I absolutely do help people with certain any kind of content, really. I love that piece. I really do. And it's important for your business. I mean, our words online, it is us. I mean, that's what people see usually. Some of us, as you, use video, which is awesome. But for those who don't, really all they have is the written word most of the time. And that website is the window into your business. And if it doesn't convey with your words what you do and the nature of you, why would people want to stay there? Everyone else is just a click away. So you want to get them there. You want them interested. You want them to know what's different about you. So I love to do website copy, training materials, any of kind of those things that grow your business.
Do you ever offer any webinars, any seminars, any sort of in that area? And I'll tell you the reason I ask you is this is a hot button topic right now.
Yeah. I no, I haven't as of yet. I am doing that. I've done some speaking and I'm working on some group programs that will begin with some webinars to get things going and to offer more content to people. Right now, they can get it through my newsletter, and I do blog on a regular basis and offer tips through my business Facebook page and all that sort of thing, so that people can get content if they're not choosing to work with me one-on-one. But there is definitely more to come in terms of webinars and trainings.
Cool. You mentioned blogging, and that was one of the questions I had written down that I wanted to ask you. Is the writing style for blogging different than it is for, say, writing an article or writing a book or telling a story?
It can be. A lot of people approach blogging as a little bit more personal, a little bit less structured, a little more of a window into them as a person. And that's fine. Some people don't care if there are typos in their blog. Some people don't care a lot about the structure of it, and that's fine. However, if you're using blogging to grow your business, I think it's important to spend more time and structure it a little bit more like an article. Be more aware of what your purpose is, who your target audience is, what the message is that you're wanting to convey, and to convey it quickly, in my opinion, because online people are shuffling to the next thing. And if you have a real lengthy blog, unless they really love you, most people are going to find it hard to find the time to read it.
Great point. And I agree with you because I write 3 of them. And I know that it's interesting when I look at the algorithms and the analytics, the ones that are read the most often and shared are the ones that are the shortest ones. Okay. If I'm writing a blog for business, as opposed to a blog to just share my personal opinions, okay, what would your advice be to me?
To give away some of your best content in those blogs, to offer up something that people can really use. And then they will remember perhaps where they learned it, and they will come to see you as a resource that they can use ongoing. Now, they may never choose to work with you one-on-one, but that's okay. They might mention you to someone else who will. So I often suggest that, although I do like to write about just life in general sometimes on my blogging, to really make sure that a lot of it has to do with writing and editing for me and tips that people can use right away.
Okay. there seems to be a big trend, or at least from the things I read and the people I listen to. And you mentioned videos a few minutes ago. And everything I read seems to say that websites, blogs, marketing material, what have you, that we're moving away from the printed word and we're moving into, if you don't have videos, boy, you just don't have it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, things are always changing, and I usually love to know what the latest is and then make my own decisions about it. And I had heard that a lot. If you don't have video on your website, you're missing the boat. And I did believe that to an extent, because I think it's obviously a lot more animated and people get to see a little more of your personality than they do in something that you write. So I did quickly put a homemade video up on mine. Again, the way that I live of not always having perfection, it definitely can be a lot better. But it was important for me to just try it. And I do think it is a good resource for some. However, some of us love to read, and we might find it more leisurely to read your blog or your information than to watch a video of you talking about it. And I think you also need to be comfortable in front of the camera and take a little time, as I know you do, John, to know how to make a good video.
Yeah. Well, let me just, rarely do I correct my guests, but I'm going to correct you.
Okay.
Because I watched your video on your website and I thought it was really good.
Oh, thank you.
And the one thing is, I'm going to white box back over to you while I'm talking, which is a big Google Plus no, but I'm doing it for a reason. If you look in the background of what Deb has, there's now you got to remember I'm a guy here. There's a vase, there's a plant, and there's what I call a little inspirational saying. And that's the same thing that's on your website, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's kind of a branding tool for you, correct?
Well, the card.
Yeah.
Yes and no. It's a branding tool for a friend of ours, Tina Falk, who created those feng shui art cards. And I helped her do that through my creative content creation coaching. That's a lot of C's, but where we brainstormed her idea and kind of walked through problem solving and creating the content. And then she developed this product that's just one of a wonderful little piece of feng shui art cards that she sells as a set. And I love it because they're all over my house. And it is inspirational to me, and it reminds me of why I do what I do and how I support the people that I work with. So yes, I do like to keep those things around me.
And I think they're a real good, for those of you out there who are considering doing videos, I just love your whole background. It's clean.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And it doesn't detract from you.
Oh, thanks.
And you also dress so you're complimenting the background rather than, I've seen some folks do video who wear shocking yellow with a pink bow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Tina, okay, and I'm going to bring her up for two reasons. First of all, she left a comment out in the event page that you are just a super cool person. Okay? And as a matter of fact, she said, so true, Deb is extremely supportive on so many levels.
Oh.
Okay. And the other thing I want to tell you, and I was going to save this till the end, but Tina's going to be my guest 2 weeks from now.
Oh, great.
And she's going to be talking about the whole concept of feng shui, which I'm really, really interested in doing. Okay, I come to you. I want to write. I've kind of, I've always sat down and filled up notebooks and everything else, but I really want to get serious about this. And I come to you and I say, hey, Deb, let's talk. I'm thinking of using you as my coach. Walk me through the process of how we're going to work together.
Okay. First, we're going to talk about what it is you want your writing to do. So whether you want to be writing for publications, you want to start working on a book, you're writing content for your business or your website. So it's really important that we know what type of writing, or you just want to write for your own pleasure That's fine too. So it's important to decide the purpose, then to talk about your target. And I will coach you through that process if you haven't already done that. And then it's a matter of setting the stage for writing, which really, the more we do of setting the stage, the easier it is to do the writing. So I spend a lot of time helping people to look at when they write, what time of day, what day of the week, what works for them. And if you don't already know that, it's important to play around with that. And it might change. I mean, we're people who change, and we need to be flexible to, if something's not working that worked before, maybe we need to start writing in the evening or writing first thing in the morning. There's a lot to be said about our comfort when we're writing, where we are. Sometimes I suggest that if it's not flowing, step outside and write from your deck or from a coffee house, if that makes you feel more at ease. And to think about everything from what you're wearing and how comfortable you are to whether you're hungry or tired or in a good mood or not, and do as much as you can do to make those conditions optimal. Whether you're writing pen to paper or at your computer and your keyboard. Some of us need to clear our minds before we write. You might meditate. You might do a little yoga. You might just breathe for a few minutes. If your mind's really going and none of those things work or they're not your thing to do, you might want to just write to get those thoughts out that have nothing to do with what you really want to write about, but they're getting in the way. So I often will suggest just take a pad and write your to-do list, your things that are bugging you, whatever it is, and then physically set it aside. So now you hopefully have a clean slate to begin the writing you want to do.
So, and I want to make sure I understand you correctly, because this is really cool. You approach things from a very holistic perspective.
I do. Yes. Is there any other way? I don't know, but I do.
Well, here's what I think is so cool is that, traditionally, and one of the things I get feedback from folks who watch my show, and just to give you a little history, when I started out, I did very traditional careers, okay? Brought on people that were accountants and people in marketing and sales. And suddenly this whole world opens up to me. And, I'm going to say something, and then you can say, yes, John, you're brilliant, or no, John, you're not. If you say, no, John, you're not, and you're thrown out of the hangout, I had nothing to do with it. But most of the time we look as editors as being those people that are kind of pointing the pencil at you and circling it with the red box and everything else. And now here you come and you talk about me meditating, and I listen to music and like incense or candles. Okay. That's kind of my thing. But so you work with your clients very much on a holistic level.
I do. And yes, John, you're brilliant.
Of course.
You're just fishing for that. No, I do, because that's really, writing is a very personal thing. And even if it is for business, it's really a personal thing. And some of the best business coaches don't love writing or don't feel they're good writers. So it's important to help, I think, support those people and build them up, because they are writers and they can learn to be better ones. And I do take the holistic approach, and most people respond to that and are looking for more than the red pen circling their work. In fact, most of my editing will say, you might want to try this, or what do you think about this phrasing? Or here are my editing suggestions, because really that's what they are. I mean, as the writer, you need to make those decisions about what you want and what you don't. And sometimes people will say, okay, I see what you're saying, Deb, but I'm going to go with this piece. Or thank you, I wasn't looking at it that way. So the more I can give them as to why I might be suggesting something, the better, and the more that they learn. So one of my favorite things about helping people to become better writers is when they say to me, well, I changed this, or now I write this way because you taught me to do this. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing.
Is there such a thing as writer's block? in your opinion?
Oh, yeah, I think it's very real. And I think it can probably happen for a whole host of reasons, and we may never know exactly why. But I think if we look at those different pre-writing conditions and play around with that, we might free something up. It might be on the confidence level. I also, the important piece, once you set the stage for writing and begin writing, there's a whole lot of steps I have around that too, that you really need to just write and get the flow going and not self-edit. And I think that's critical. And even as an editor, I try not to self-edit when I'm writing, because it's really a way to get yourself to stop and go and stop and go and talk about writer's block. It becomes very frustrating. The other thing I suggest is when you set the stage and sit down to write and it's just not coming, I suggest not to struggle for a long time, to just let it go and come back later. There's no sense, in my opinion, to sit there and fight through it. Maybe you just need to change something else up or give yourself a break and come back at it again.
Good point. Your motto, live worthy and do good. How did you arrive at that?
I caught that, or a piece of that, in a radio show I was listening to. And I was driving in my car and it just hit me that that's kind of what I do in my work, is that I really try to work with people in a way that is with integrity and that supports what they do just because it's the right thing to do. It might not always get me business. It might not always get me repeat business, but most of the time it does, because it's just right. It's just a way to be worthy of the gifts that we have and sharing them with people, often in a business arrangement, but sometimes just because it's the supportive thing to do.
Had a comment out there. Comment tracker stopped working, so I'm going back and forth to the event page. Okay. The person out there, they're not a follower of mine yet, but so I'm assuming they're a follower of yours by the name of Rebecca Camarina.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I'm not sure what she meant by this comment, but she said, "Deb, nice interview so far." I don't know if we're going to.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. We'll go with that. Yeah. Thank you. That's very kind of her. She's a fellow writer-editor, by the way, so people should check her out too.
Cool. You talk about on your webpage, and you talk about in your Google Plus bio and everything, that you help people get to the whys.
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me about how you do that.
Okay. Some people have done that before they get to me, but if they haven't, I will ask them, what's your big overall why you write? And it's really, even if it's for business, there's still a range, and it could be to be informative, it could be to be inspirational, to tell a story, to grow their business. Hopefully it's all of those, but it's important for them to settle in on one or two, so that then they can write with that in mind. And I might suggest at times that people even write that purpose down. So their overall purpose, as well as the purpose of the piece. And for the piece, you might even type it at the top of your screen or on an index card near you, so that before you write, you remind yourself what that purpose is. As you're writing, you take a look at it and say, am I still on that track, or am I changing gears? And by the way, I think it's always fine to change gears, that we need to be flexible to do that. And then when we're finished, to really ask ourselves the question, did I do what I set out to do? And people don't always think all those things through. I think that they sometimes might need a little support or guidance to take that step back from their writing. And a lot of us will think, well, we just need to blog because we have to blog because we have a business. Everybody has to have a blog. Well, why? I mean, what's your blog going to do? And why are you going to write it? And more importantly, why are people going to read it? And you can just step blindly into that, or you can do it with a purpose, and your writing is going to be a lot more targeted and hopefully meet that need that you're set out to do.
Yeah, those are really, really good points, because and I've got a follow-up question here, and the question is crystal clear in my mind. I'm not quite sure how it's going to come out of my mouth, but as people like Amazon and some of the other free self-publishers kind of diluted the professionalism in that industry, if that made sense.
It does to me. I think it has. I think self-publishing is a wonderful thing, and for some people, it's a great way to get your book out there, and it's going to sell, and it's going to fly off the shelves if you have good marketing and a good brand, and you're really working at PR. However, anyone, I really mean anyone, can publish, and they can publish anything. If you're self-publishing, it doesn't have to be free of grammatical errors. It doesn't have to be well written. It doesn't have to be all those things that traditional publishing houses required before they would even look beyond your query letter. So it has changed things, and it makes it easier in some respects, but a lot harder to stand out. So you really need to make sure that that you still go that route of making it the best it can be, even if you're going to self-publish. So I work with writers who self-publish, who still choose to use me as a last look before they have it formatted and printed.
Okay. Do you provide a service? For example, I say to you, "Hey, Deb, read this for me and tell me what you think," and you say, "God, John, this is the best thing I've ever read," and I say, "I know," and I say to you, "Could you suggest some publishing houses, people that would be more interested than less in my book?" Do you do those type of things?
Yeah, I don't have those kind of relationships at this point. I do know a few publishers, actually, I shouldn't say that, who I have done some editing for, and they are just starting out. So I'm not really sure that they're looking for more books at this point. They already had a group of authors that they were designing this business for. But so I can do it to some extent. I'm very resourceful. So actually with some of my authors, I have researched and reached out to publishing houses on my own, because that's what I do as part of my, living worthy, doing good, is just to help them. I mean, we get it to the best it can be, and then you can't get it published anywhere. That's not, the end of the road, in my opinion. So I don't really have those established relationships yet, but I can get it right up into that point and then help point you in the direction of where you might be able to find that.
Cool. You are featured today on the Thursday edition of the Coffeehouse Chatter and Coffee and Coaching with Karen, which is just, if you guys get an opportunity, check this website out. Deb's got some real good advice. There are 19 other coaches and consultants that Karen's assembled as experts, but today Deb's being featured, and the question she's answering, and I'd like you to answer it for our audiences: how can I write for my business more quickly and, most importantly, with less stress?
Yes. I know we touched a little bit on that before. In today's tip, what I focused on was one piece of that, which is often suggested to establish a daily writing habit. And you may not want to do that forever, or maybe you do. I don't personally do that, but I have done that before at times. And it's a way to just get your mindset in that routine and to set aside, it doesn't have to be long, maybe 15 minutes, a half an hour every day, preferably at the same time of day with the same conditions, maybe the place and all those things we talked about before, and just write. And in the beginning, it could be write about anything, like you're journaling or what's on your mind, but keep that pen to paper and keep that keyboard moving the whole time. Don't stop for whatever your time period is. And it gets you in the habit of just writing, even though you're not focusing on the words so much at that point. And then when you do need to write for business or with a particular purpose in mind, it makes it easier to step into that and help the words flow.
Cool. what's your biggest challenge in working with your clients? Is there one thing that you kind of go, oh boy, here we go again?
Fortunately, no. I mean, it is hard to tell people if I think their piece or their book needs a real lot of work. And that has been a challenge, not for long, because I really kind of can get over that hump and realize it's the right thing to do. I have to let people know what I think. But that aside, in working online, it's a bit of a challenge to make sure we communicate clearly online. And not all of my clients care to do a phone call, and we don't always have to do that. But you really have to be careful in what they send through email or however way they do, and how you respond back, that you're very clear about what the expectations are both ways, what they want me to do, what I need from them, and vice versa. So it's always a challenge in that I need to keep that in mind, especially when starting out with someone. After we've had a long relationship, and even not that long, people will just say, here, Deb, here's my latest article. You know, I know what to do, they know what to do. We don't really need a whole lot of conversation. But initially, before you really know people, it is a bit of a challenge to make sure that you get that piece down.
Okay. Good advice. What's been your greatest success?
Let's see. I do enjoy speaking, and I've only recently started doing more of it. And that has felt like a success to me, in that I do think it's a great way to grow your business, to reach more people, to let more people know what you do, and just to share good writing tips and good editing tips beyond my own small circle. And so it's a success to me to have gotten to that point. All of my clients' successes really feel like mine too. If I've played a small piece in getting that book published, or getting something sold, or getting that product out there, it really means a lot to me. I have several clients who started out really early on with their own website that needed a lot of work and needed a lot of editing done. And they need me less and less over time. And to me, that is a success, because I've really taught them some of my skill set so they can do it on their own.
I think you've just defined a good coach. Very succinctly, because we're not supposed to move in.
True.
Now, I don't believe in failure. Okay, I just don't.
Yeah.
But if is there something you would tell our audience here that, you know, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't finish the sentence?
Actually, I think it goes back to my one suggestion that I got from a business coach who I knew, that I did spend a lot of time initially spinning some of the wheels, working on the website, working on listening to every webinar out there that was for free, reading and signing up for everybody's newsletter. And that is good in the beginning, but you can get bogged down pretty quickly. So the sooner, I wish that I had even sooner become a little more discriminating. And I think it's a balance, because you need to know what's out there before you choose who you want to follow. But I think unsubscribing is just as important as subscribing. And for me, I think that I might have lost a little time initially with some of that, and some of those activities, like I said before, that didn't really bring me business. They were part of growing a business, but I really needed to shift a little more to getting clients in so that I could continue to go back and do those other things.
You talked about increasing your public speaking and wanting to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of public speakers market and attempt to sell their book while they're doing so. Okay. Some of them do it very well. Some of them not at all. So if I'm a public speaker and I've got a book I want to push somewhere within the course of my delivery, do you have some tips on how I can do that?
I don't have a book to sell, but I've kind of learning that myself in a course that I'm in right now. That's wonderful about creating your own signature talks and how to grow your business through speaking. And that's through a wonderful coach, Jeannie Spiro. And she really talks about doing it in a authentic way that is true to the ideas of offering content and helping people to see what you can give so that they want to buy your book, they want to come to you and work with you, or they at least want to know a little bit more. And she does it really in a wonderful way with a lot of clear steps. So part of having a book or a product or a program is people don't love the hard sell. I mean, I know I don't. And I've been in positions where I get just completely turned off and almost to the point of stopping listening when that stuff starts. And it can be very veiled, but most of us can see through it. And it just doesn't feel very good. So I think what I would suggest to people is that you might share some stories from your book or weave it into what you're talking about. Don't overpower. Don't wait to the end to just say, and now here's my book and you can buy it for this. That there are ways to do that that are more integrated into the overall talk that you're giving, that are going to make people want to know you more, and they're going to want to know where they can buy your book and how they can buy your book and feel good about it. And you can feel good about sharing it that way.
I've got to tell you, between Rebecca and Tina out there, you have your own unpaid marketing department.
Yes, I know. I know. I appreciate them.
They are just singing your praises.
Oh, that's very kind.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you, that's the proof is always in the pudding. So listen, we're going to get ready to wrap things up here in a few minutes. What do you got going on? Do you have any offers? Do you have anything you'd like our audience to know? What if I want to work with you? What do I do about getting in touch with you?
Okay, sure. I have to respond to your proof is in the pudding because I just sent my newsletter out just yesterday and I wrote the proof was in the pudding. So that's just a little bizarre. And I don't really use that phrase, but I used it because in working with Jeannie, one of the things that I'm doing is speaking more. So my newsletter really focused on, here are some of the things I'm doing. One is this hangout that we're doing today. Another is that I'm going to be on Anne Marie Cross's podcast, The Ambitious Entrepreneur. And we already recorded it, but it's not going to air for a little while. So people can listen in. If they want to get to know me, they can come to my website, debcoman.com. And they can sign up if they'd like to for my newsletter to stay connected. I have a free gift. That's all. A lot of the things we talked about today about getting ready to write, actually writing. And then part 3, we really didn't talk too much about, but is how to begin the self-editing process. So if anyone signs up, they can get that there too.
Well, you know what? We can just have you back on.
Oh, I would love it.
And you can talk about the self-editing process.
Oh, for sure. That's fun. That's fun, really. That's really a lot of fun. So those kind of things are coming up, and there's more to come, more webinars, more programs, and some more offers for people. But for now, they can get tips. They can get to know me, and they can go back and read some of my blogs that talk about writing and editing. Cool.
I've really enjoyed this, and I've really learned a lot. And the real difficult thing, and a lot of the folks out there in Hangout land that host Hangouts know that the one thing you're not supposed to do is get so wrapped up in content that you forget about all the technical stuff. And I always have a difficult time with that when I have a great guest like you on. Okay, and I think I was right as a writer. I was writing stuff down as you were talking, so I know I'm walking away from this with a lot of really, really good stuff. Okay, guys, next week I'm going to have Miss Julie Stiles on, and she is a health and transformation coach. And if I don't need an editing and writing coach, which I do sometimes, I surely need a health and transformation coach. And I'm really looking forward to Julie. Now, you heard Deb mention Tina Fall. And Tina's going to be on in 2 weeks on the 23rd, and she's going to talk about feng shui. And she's one of the, I love all my guests, but I really love guests who come on where I know absolutely nothing about what they're going to talk about. And I always thought feng shui was on the appetizer menu at an Oriental restaurant. So that's what we've got coming up the next 2 weeks. I do want to give a couple shout outs before we go off the air. First shout out I want to give is to Mr. Terry Lee Britton. And a lot of you who hang around G Plus know Terry Lee. And what I really want to thank him for is, if you go to YouTube and type his name in, Terry Lee does a lot of technical videos on graphic design, on working with videos and editing. And he has been informally a really, really great mentor to me. And I thought this morning as I was setting everything up that I really, really wanted to give him a shout out. He's not one of the guys you hear when you mention heavy hitters here on Hangouts. Second person I want to give a shout out to is Melanie McDonald. And Melanie is an online marketing coach and consultant. And she's the person that told me, John, consistency. Make sure the colors that are on your webpage are the colors on your blog, and they're the colors on your LinkedIn page and your Facebook page. And she's done a tremendous job in working with me and pointing things out. And the only reason she has gray hair is, I think, because she's worked with me. And finally, I do want to give a shout out to my editor, Angie Nelson Golitis. Angie's off on maternity leave. She's got an adorable 9-week-old son. And she saw the page and she called me yesterday afternoon and said, are you getting rid of me? And I said, no, I'm not. Oh. I said, you just don't ever want to come on camera. Oh, okay. So those three people and so many, many more make for a great and wonderful community. So on that note, Deb, thank you again. Do you have any final words you'd like to say to our audience?
No, just thank you so much for listening. And I'd love to get connected with any of you who are interested in learning more. Thank you so much, John, for the opportunity. It's been fun.
You're quite welcome. And for those of you out there in what we call the peanut gallery, and if you have a web camera and you have video capability, I'm going to put the link out here in the event page. And if you want to come in when we go off the air and talk with Deb, if you have any questions, please feel free to do so. And I'm going to do that, like I said, as soon as we go off the air. So for Deb and for myself, thank you very much for stopping in today at the Career Corner. And we'll see you next week at the same time. Hope you all have a great week. And bye-bye.
Bye.